So, going to talk about knee injuries today. So, we know there are multiple factors that come in when we talk about an injury. So, as in what makes our body, because whether it's injury to tissue, whether it's ligaments, whether it's muscle, bone, there's so many factors of what it could be. The good news is with kinesiology is we work on multiple different levels. So I'm working on blood level, cellular level, and then you work up tissue level, and so on. You get the point. Because where I say, oh yeah, we're working on multiple levels, because cells that are of the same kind form together to make tissue. And then when you have tissue that's the same kind, that's organs, and different parts of tissue that we use for our body. So we're working on the different levels. So when you break it down, when you're working at cellular level, you are then working at tissue level because cells are what make tissue. So where your body knows inside, internally, it knows what's wrong, it knows what's hurt, what's damaged. So therefore, it knows what it needs in order to get better. Might be handy to watch the muscle testing video here where I explain a bit more about that, where your body knows what it needs, etc. So the way that we are working is all about repair. It's all about repair on the different levels. So whatever it is that your body needs, whether it is a muscular level, whether it is ligament, whether it is tissue, or whether we need to go further down and go a bit deeper and work on that cellular level, whatever it is that's needed, we can work with the body so we can get you there. And your body will be picking what it needs to get better. Again, the muscle testing video explains more about that. So also when it comes to injury, I'm going to talk about old injury here, actually. So when we have an old injury and let's say it hasn't fully healed, when I look at things holistically, I would say it's not that it necessarily hasn't fully healed. Maybe that is the case, maybe it's not. But actually, what can happen is when we have an old injury, it's a weak point in the body. And what can happen is as we go through life and we go through these emotions, and obviously not all of them are good. So what can happen is these negative emotions can become lodged and trapped in the weak points in the body. So often, obviously, it would be an old injury. So when, someone has an old injury and then 3 years later, they're still getting those niggles, it might not actually be from the injury itself, but it might be from the emotions that are sat, trapped and festering in there. So holistically, we then have to work on clearing out those emotions rather than the injury itself. And the injury is then a byproduct in that sense. But that's a different thing to what I was talking about in terms of the repair side of things, working on different levels. But I broke my ankle a few years ago, and people had said to me like, oh, even when it heals in the winter, you'll feel it and, you'll get these sensations and, oh, you might not be able to, do as intense exercise and certain things for quite as long and stuff like that. I did 2 sessions on my broken ankle while it was in a cast. So I did kinesiology on myself for that actually. And I was, as soon as I'd broken it, and I was like, oh yeah, I could do kinesiology for this and it will heal a lot faster. Obviously, in that respect, time was needed, of course. The body's got to repair itself. It's, not instantaneous. But yeah, so I did 2 sessions on it. I was supposed to have my cast for 8 weeks. I got it off in 4.5. And the nurse who, they'd booked me in and said, oh, well, you might not be able to get your cast off. We'll have to scan it and see. And I said, no, that's fine. I said, but I feel all right, you know. And yeah, they scanned me, everything, watched how I walked, everything. Didn't need a boot, nothing like that. I was just sent away, fine. And obviously had physio to just regain the strength and mobility on my right ankle there. But I don't feel anything in the cold. I don't get niggles or little aches or pains or anything like that in my ankle. And I put this down to kinesiology and the physio that I did afterwards, obviously, that helped rebuild it back up. Because it wasn't about magically repairing something in that sense instantaneously, like I said. It was about giving the body a boost in whatever way it needed to help the healing process further along. Because in that sense, with a broken bone, it would have healed with the cast on, you know, being set like that. It just would have taken longer. So I gave it that boost so it could heal faster. So yeah, living case of how kinesiology can help injuries, I suppose, in that sense. Another thing with injuries, what I get a lot of is, and it doesn't even, you know, not even big injuries, just, you know, where you've hurt yourself a little bit, you're not feeling 100% in a specific area, joint, you know, whatever it is. And people are sort of wondering, well, you know, I never know how long to rest it for. If I can do gentle exercise, you know, what can I do? What can't I do? How long do I need to rest it for? How often? And all these questions, because we just don't know, do we? You know, we can only go by the best advice and by listening to our body, really. But this is where muscle testing, what we do in kinesiology, again, watching the muscle testing video would probably really help. With muscle testing, we can work out with the body, because the body knows what it needs. So we translate in with the muscle testing when it needs rest, how long for, when you can do exercise again, how often you could do that exercise, you know, what intensity of exercise, whether, you know, when resting, or do we need to put heat on the injury, do we need to put cold on the injury, all these factors of questions to ask that, you know, we don't always know the answer for, but your body knows the answer. So yeah, muscle testing comes in really handy with injuries for that. And from my experience, what I found is it's generally always pretty spot on, because when with a client and I'll say, you know, they've done themselves some their back in, something like that, and their body is saying, right, okay, you need to do, for example, nothing for 3 days, you know, rest as much as possible, only do your bare minimum just to give it time to heal, for instance. And if they actually follow it, they feel so much better afterwards. And then again, we test again, and we keep testing as we go, as your body repairs itself and heals, and sorts itself out. And also with doing the energy work to give your body that boost as well. So it's all things working together at the same time, which gives you, you know, the fastest and the most optimal healing, so you get better as quick as possible and as long lasting as possible as well, so you then don't get those ongoing niggles for the next 5 years because of an old injury, you know. So yeah, that is how kinesiology or health kinesiology can help with knee injuries, and obviously the same principle goes for other injuries as well, really. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of how it can help in multiple ways.